I'm here to put this debate to rest. Netflix is 100% the best streaming platform out there, producing the most incredible originals whether it comes to movies or TV series. That's it. We don't have anything else to say about it.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart. I'm gonna be developing that point a little bit, of course. I went back on Letterboxd and I also went back on my history of every single thing that I watched on Netflix, and I tried to see how many of those things were actually good, did I enjoy, because I want to put things into context. I feel like this conversation comes back and forth every month or so, or at least every single time that there is an incredibly bad movie coming out on a streaming platform. We start this debate again, we start ranking things again, and after looking at every single original movie that Netflix has produced and distributed since its launch, I came up with a list of 37 films that I actually like. Some of them are good, some of them are excellent, some of them are actually magnificent. And you can have a look at that because I'm gonna be linking it down here in the comments and you can check it out as well. Is the video over? Are we done?
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous team.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Not necessarily, no. So 37 movies since 2015. That's what I could find on Wikipedia. That's allegedly when they started making original content. And I'm sitting here being like, what does it actually mean? Can we put it into context? For example, I wanted to check out other platforms, but most specifically, I wanted to check out other production companies / studios and see how many movies I've actually liked from them since 2015. And I took two examples. One of them is A24, which is a production company that I really love. I like, let's say, 70% of what they release, and most of that percentage is actually horror films, but there are some independent dramas as well across all of the different films that they've released since 2015, because I wanted to put all of them at the same level. I actually liked 56 movies, which is an interesting number as well. And then I wanted to go much bigger. I wanted to go to the giants of filmmaking, which produce anything from blockbusters, comedies, horror, you name it. Whatever it is, they make it. So I looked at Warner Bros. Pictures.
Ho ho, very funny.
And through their catalog since 2015, across all of the different movies that they've released, I liked 42 out of them. So we've got 42, we've got 56, and we've got 37 with Netflix. And I was sitting there being like, it's an interesting statistic when I think about it, mostly because people always point at Netflix saying there's a lot of garbage there, and it's honestly quite hard to find good movies. But it's kind of the same when you look at Warner Brothers, even though the ratios are probably inversed, because Warner Brothers Pictures, even A24, for example, if you don't like A24 types of films, tend to produce quite a lot of films across the years. So it's always more difficult to actually find things that might satisfy you. So once I came to this realization, I was like, is this it? Is this what I wanted to prove? Not necessarily, because actually I was never convinced that Netflix was the place to go to watch movies. There are so many more mediocre movies being released on a yearly basis just in general. My whole argument on why I think Netflix releases the most amount of good originals has to do with TV shows, and that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Once again, I went into research mode. I went back and looked at every single page of my Netflix history. Look at how many of them there are here. I honestly got bored of my own self at this point because there was a lot of content to be reviewed, and actually the history stops in 2019. So when it comes to the originals I'm going to be talking about today to prove that Netflix is the best streaming platform out there, unfortunately for me, I will have to stop in 2019 and use my memory for the rest of the years. So it is possible that I will actually forget about a lot of incredible shows, and that's where actually you come in. I want you to jump down in the comments and let me know which are the best series that you've watched on Netflix. And of course I'm going to be talking mostly about originals, so not necessarily stories about TV shows that they've revived, and if I ever talk about them, I'm gonna mention it like literally at the beginning. It is actually possible that there are certain shows which are labeled slash distributed by other platforms in the United States, for example. So I think that my perspective is still gonna be very Europe based, but I actually try to double check most of these TV shows thanks to Wikipedia to check whether they were distributed globally by Netflix or just in certain regions, and there are just a couple of them that were listed, so I'm pretty sure this is gonna be like 1% of the shows that I'm gonna be talking about today. I did this incredible amount of work because I love recommending things, and when it comes to TV shows, there is a lot of stuff that we tend to forget because there are so many new ones coming out all the time, and also it all has to do with marketing. If the marketing of a certain TV show is bad, and often Netflix is definitely guilty of that, not a lot of people are gonna be watching it, and also I feel like we're all kind of guilty when it comes to the hype. As soon as there is a new kind of shiny object, we tend to jump on it and call it the best TV show of the decade, of the last 20 years, of the last 50 years, the best in the genre, the best in this specific language, the best coming from this specific country. We tend to forget the context just because we like new shiny toys, right? So that's why I was like, let's look at the history of all of the original content that Netflix has produced, and let's see if I can convince you to watch more things on Netflix or to give it another chance. Of course, this is not sponsored at all, even though I'm definitely gonna be talking about it in a very positive way, but I'm still gonna be skeptical. I'm still gonna be deconstructing my own thoughts. This is not just gonna be praise for praise's sake. Having said that, I've devised a list, and it's divided in a lot of different categories because I love organizing my notes. And within every single category, there's gonna be a few shows that probably everybody knows. I'm gonna be mentioning them very quickly, and in case maybe you don't know anything about them, I'm gonna try to say what makes them special, what makes them original in just a couple of sentences, because otherwise this video will probably last 72 hours, and we don't have time for that, right?
Let's get this party started!
This is a slumber party.
So let's grab my notes here and have a look at the horror category, which starts with a couple of shows that you probably know, that you've seen everywhere, that I've actually received quite a lot of reviews and videos out there.
Your friends have lost.
I'm talking about Stranger Things, Wednesday, and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. These are horror Netflix originals which are very popular. When it comes to Stranger Things, of course, it is based on nostalgia, but also it has some of the best child performances that we've seen in a really long time. I feel like people kind of forgot about that because the first season of Stranger Things came out quite a long time ago, and also we're kind of tired of it at the same time, right? It's taking too much time with the production, and we're sitting there being like, it should have stopped maybe with season 4, and that's what I think about it as well. Honestly, the Vecna season should have been the last season for me because they managed to grow an immense amount of hype, but I still think that it's a very special show. And when I think about other streaming platforms, the only one that has reached this amount of cultural relevancy, it's probably Game of Thrones, but that came out a lot before that streaming platforms were actually a thing, so I don't know if you can actually count it. When it comes to Wednesday, it's very recent. It probably gained such a cult following because of Jenna Ortega, of course, who is an incredible actress, and it's also the return of Tim Burton doing his Tim Burton things. And when it comes to The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, I mean, it's very camp, but at the same time, it's so much fun. Of course, the last season is without a doubt almost unwatchable, but there are so many fun things going on with the supernatural genre, and we gotta remember that before The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the biggest supernatural thing going on was Supernatural, and it got quite tiring. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina kind of turned the supernatural into fun times again, which I completely lost back then because it always felt like it was going around the same themes. Also, it's feminist as fuck, and I like that. When it comes to two other horror TV shows that I wanted to recommend, of course, I couldn't talk about Netflix and originals and horror without mentioning Mike Flanagan.
Not making excuses. I saw.
When it comes to these shows, I mean, we've got The Haunting of Hill House, Midnight Mass, The Midnight Club, and the most recent, The Fall of the House of Usher. I'm not recommending the two last ones because I think they're just not as well written, even though they have incredible production design, incredible performances. But Midnight Mass and Haunting of Hill House are incredible. Bly Manor, I forgot to mention it as well. It exists. It's quite cool. Still not as good as Haunting of Hill House. One thing that I will say about Haunting of Hill House is that if you like the book, this is 100% better. I read the book as well and I was incredibly bored. I couldn't really tell exactly what was scary about it, mostly because it's a gothic fairy tale, and Haunting of Hill House, it's a very modern interpretation of possession, hauntings, ghost apparitions. There is a lot of trauma as well. I'm also pretty sure that Haunting of Hill House kind of started the trend of trauma porn, kind of like what they did with the film The Babadook as well, where ghosts are kind of like a metaphor for trauma and not being able to surpass it, not being able to grow past it. Now it's kind of overdone and every single horror movie has done it, but Haunting of Hill House kind of started that trend. When it comes to Midnight Mass, what I will say is that, do you like Salem's Lot, Stephen King's book? It's the best adaptation of Salem's Lot you will ever see. I know that there is a movie coming out maybe by the end of the year, we don't actually know for sure, but if you like that tone of feeling completely at loss when it comes to vampires kind of conquering an entire town, well, you need to watch Midnight Mass because it's 100% relentless, it's gory, and once again beautifully shot and very interesting from a thematic perspective. These are the only things I'm gonna be mentioning for the horror subgenre, mostly because there are definitely other ones, but they're not as good, to be honest. Now let's jump into the fantasy subgenre. Of course, the two that I could mention and that everybody knows and they've probably seen them, or at least they've heard everyone talk about them, it's The Witcher and The Sandman.
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
When it comes to The Witcher, what I will say is that it kind of made me fall in love with the IP, and I personally played The Witcher 3. I also read the first book in the novelization of The Witcher, and I didn't really connect with the universe. It's only thanks to Henry Cavill's performance, thanks to the monsters, thanks to the way also that the storytelling was going in the first season, which I will agree that it made no sense. It was still quite intriguing to experience. I know The Witcher is not a perfect show, and now it's a bit of a mess, but I will say that it kind of reignited the passion that we had for epic fantasy, which was 100% dead within the TV show industry when you think about it, because after the death of Game of Thrones, basically no one tried to make anything new and exciting within that genre, and then The Witcher came and people started getting more excited. If you remember as well, after The Witcher we got other things like Wheel of Time, which was greenlit, and then they greenlit Rings of Power, they greenlit House of the Dragon. I think we all have to thank The Witcher because of all those successes as well. When it comes to Sandman, this is probably a series that is not for everyone because it's quite slow, but it's amazing. I love the way that it tells the story of Sandman as well. I read the original comic, only the first volume, I haven't read the entire story, but I could really tell that they managed to capture something amazing about the vibes of all of these characters who kind of exist beyond time, and that they're really hard to relate at the end of the day. And honestly, I had zero expectations when it comes to Sandman, especially made by Netflix, which at the time when Sandman came out was mostly known for making TV shows aimed at teenagers. If you look at things like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, for example, those are the things that it was known for. So I was sitting there being like, there is no way that the Sandman is gonna be good, and it was fantastic. And it's actually related to another show that I wanted to talk about that came out just a couple of weeks ago. It's Dead Boy Detectives.
We have to help. Even if it's scary, and the odds are bad, and we might die horrifically.
We got a couple of characters from the Sandman which come back in Dead Boy Detectives as well, because they're part of the same universe. And I don't know if it was because of the marketing, but almost no one talked about this series, and I honestly really like it. It's about these two teenagers who are actually really old because they're ghosts and they refuse to go to hell, so they're trying to escape death, but at the same time they want to help around, they want to do something about it, so they investigate and solve crimes. And and it's got a weird sense of humor about it. It's very gory and also quite scary. It, of course, is going around the same themes as the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but it has that seriousness that comes out of the Sandman universe, and if you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. Another series that you might have heard of, it's the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which is the prequel to the movie that came out in the 80s. It's an incredible show that not a lot of people watched, and it was mostly talked about because of the special effects and the Muppetry which was involved as well, which is kind of like not revolutionary, but it's something that is not done nowadays anymore. And I actually watched the documentary as well on how they filmed everything, and it's so completely fascinating. This story is full of action, love, and incredible practical effects, so I really recommend it because it's one of those hidden gems that was definitely killed by bad marketing, and also by the fact that Jim Henson's creations at the end of the day are kind of niche. They're not for everyone. And the other recommendation within the fantasy genre that I wanted to talk about, which is good, it's not cringe, and it's modern, it came out just a couple of months ago, it's Ronja the Robber's Daughter. This is a series that is actually in Swedish, and if you look at the trailer you will think that it's yet another teen-oriented kind of like weird fantasy medieval series about special ones and discovering the power within you and saving the universe or whatever the fuck, but actually no, it has very low stakes. It's about these two robber bands who live on the outskirts of this town, and they're basically competing with their different territories and thieving and robbing the peoples that try to go from one town to another, and there are some interesting machinations going on. There are some magical creatures as well. This is a universe that is a bit different from our own. The practical effects, the special effects are incredible, but this is not really what the series is about. I just wanna remind you of that. It's mostly a medieval drama, and it's mostly a medieval European drama, so there is not that much action going on, but it's definitely not boring.
Varför gör hon så här?
And what I love about it is that it makes medieval characters and stereotypes a bit more realistic. You kind of relate to these people, and these are not heroes of legends. These are not like lone warriors going from town to town slaying monsters like in The Witcher. It's a very down to the bottom, ground to earth story, and honestly I really fell in love with it. It's got one season and there's supposed to be a second one coming out quite soon as well. Check it out if you want. It's only like 6 or 7 episodes if I'm not mistaken, so you can binge it in no time. Now let's add into the action subgenre, and here, oh boy, we've got quite a lot of stuff.
Do not understand.
I do.
I understood that reference.
I'm gonna be mentioning these quite fast because you've heard about them, and also the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of like rewriting a lot of things within this, but you've got to remember that Netflix was the one who actually created Jessica Jones, The Punisher, Daredevil, and Luke Cage. Let's forget about Iron Fist and The Defenders, which were actually really bad, but these 4 shows were impeccable. They all had a very different look to them when you look at the cinematography, the way the editing worked as well, tone-wise as well. It felt really adult-oriented, but they all were dealing with different themes, and there are so many good things to say about them, but honestly I'm pretty sure that everyone has heard about them. But I'm sitting here being like, remember them? Because I'm pretty sure that people tend to forget that these are Netflix originals, right? If it wasn't for Netflix, we would have never had stories told like this by Disney Plus, without a doubt. And then we've got The Umbrella Academy, which is basically the series that started the kind of like edgy superhero TV show thing. I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't have The Boys without The Umbrella Academy. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have other weird shows like Doom Patrol as well. The Umbrella Academy started being weird when no one was actually trying it out, and mostly when we were entering a huge superhero fatigue within the TV show universe. If you think about the Arrowverse and all of that kind of shit, Arrow with Supergirl, The Flash, Legend Legends of Tomorrow, all of that kind of stuff. Umbrella Academy came back swinging and said, what about these weird people? What about weird things happening? What about violence? What about a child who is actually an adult traveling back in time and killing everyone? Why not? Of course, I also have a very negative review of the last season of the Umbrella Academy, which you can find on my channel here. What I'm talking about though, it's about creating a trend, and I just wanted to prove that Netflix did it first. Even though I didn't do it as well as The Boys, we all know that. And there are two other shows that I wanted to talk about within the action genre. One of them is One Piece, which came out last summer, which is without a doubt, I think we can all agree on that, whether it is the fans of the anime, the fans of the manga, or the fans of now the live action version, that it's the first ever good TV show adaptation of an anime series. Okay. Nobody tried to kill me, so it means that most of you can agree on that, right? I thought it was really fun. I really liked the production design. I really loved how quirky it was, and how also the performances of the characters felt from another world. They didn't really feel like they were coming from a normal adult live action series that you could see anywhere on Netflix. It just felt like it was coming from a different universe, and that's why I loved it at the end of the day, because it really felt like the heart was in it, you know? The people who worked on it, it really felt like they really believed in it, and Netflix gave them a chance to do it. And I was one of those people who didn't believe in this series at all. I was ready to shoot at it and call it a disaster. And the other action-oriented series that kind of like started getting some attention and then kind of died out, it's The Brother's Son.
I don't think we've ever hugged before.
You're probably gonna die, so might as well get one in before you go.
Came out this year as well, and there is a lot of interesting things going on. There is a lot of corruption, there is a lot of drug involved. Of course, it's a crime series, but there is a lot of comedy that works out quite well, interesting performances, and I'm pretty sure that people forgot about it, mostly because it was an Asian American cast, and they were mostly speaking Mandarin as well, meaning that a lot of people had to read subtitles, and they kind of got bored of that. It's 100% possible, but I think you should check it out and give it another chance, because it's one of those shows that I was sitting there being like, how is this so good? There have been so many crime shows out there, and specifically these kind of crime shows we try to do in martial arts as well, and this did it perfectly, and I still don't know exactly why it worked so well. Having said that, that is everything for this week. Come back in 2 weeks for part 2.
I want it now!
If you like this video, don't forget to come back in 2 weeks for part 2, and here down at the bottom I'm gonna be putting some more videos talking about mainly some other Netflix stuff that I wanted to talk about as well, but I didn't have the time right now. Don't forget to smash that like button, because every single time that you do that, you make sure that they actually greenlit something fun and interesting that we can watch on Netflix.
Can I count on you?
Because that's what we all here for at the end of the day. Original content that is not actually made by AI. Anyways, I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Till it's cool, just cool, into the mouth. Nice.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da.